welcome to the society with Barrister Fatma Shaheen at PTV World. Now, there was a time that transgenders were traditionally banished from their families. They were outcast from the Pakistani society, and it was difficult for them to make a mark in the society, so to speak. But in the past few years, we've also been seeing this trend where not one, in fact, several accomplished transgenders have emerged in the Pakistani society. They have made their mark, whether it is in the legal profession, whether it's in the profession of modeling and acting, and more recently in the medical profession, so to speak, as well. What is the typical life of a transgender like? How has the society's perception, how has their viewpoint changed over a period of time? How is the government working in order to empower transgenders, and what all can we at a very basic and societal level do in order to ensure their acceptability and inclusivity in the society? This and much more we are going to be talking about in our today's show. And to do that, let me introduce you to my today's panel. My first panelist for the show today is Ms. Jannat Ali, who is the Executive Director of Tracti Trans Organization, alongside being a transgender activist. Assalamu alaikum ji, and welcome to the show.
Walaikum assalam, and thank you.
You're most welcome. My second panelist for the show today is Madam Uzma Kardar, who is the Chairperson Standing Committee Gender Mainstreaming, and she's also the Chairperson Provincial Task Force on Gender Equality. Assalamu alaikum, madam, and welcome to the show.
Walaikum assalam. Thank you for inviting us.
Most welcome, madam. And my third panelist for the show today is Dr. Afzal Bashir Bajwa Saab, who is a consultant plastic and reconstructive surgeon. Assalamu alaikum, sir, and welcome to the show.
Walaikum assalam. Thank you very much.
And my fourth panelist is Dr. Sara Gill, who's Pakistan's first transgender doctor. She'll be joining us via telephone line. Assalamu alaikum, Dr. Saiba, and welcome to the show.
Walaikum assalam. Thank you so much for having me.
You're most welcome. Dr. Sara, I would like to start the conversation with you. My first question to you would be that, what was your motivation in joining this noble medical profession when, of course, you did have the option to join any other profession? Because at least in the Western jurisdictions, especially in the US, I've seen a lot of transgenders saying that the reason they want to become transgender doctors is because they want to be somebody who other transgender patients can relate to, who other transgender patients can talk to about the unique health concerns. So, was that a reason because of which you chose to be a doctor?
Actually, I'm a very well-known activist, and I also do modeling and acting, and Jannat knows me very well. Yeah. But the thing is that there was a reason to go in the medical field. First, from the childhood, I always wanted to be a doctor, but in the childhood, I thought that medical profession is just like hair would be flying and lab coat would be flying in the air and very, very filmy. But when I grew up, I got to know that it's not that much easy. It's a tough thing. Then I had a best friend who died due to blood cancer, and her name was Tanya Bloch. And when she died, when she was ill and was in the hospital, she used to say me, why we don't have trans doctors? It would be better if there was a trans doctor and she would be comfortable. And when
this is exactly what I was going to come to, basically, because in the US and so many other Western jurisdictions, this debate has actually cropped up, where people, especially transgender community, has been complaining that, they can't go to doctors who are real and who they can relate to. So I'm very glad that, you've made that move. But one very important question which arises from this is the fact that you were very lucky that way, that you had your family's support. So tell us more about that, because I'm sure you are an inspiration for so many people, especially your own trans community. How supportive was your family in actually supporting all these ambitions?
Well, actually, I don't want to say anything bad about them, but the thing is that they did supported me till my inter-education. I did my schooling for Pakistan Air Force Base, Masroor, and inter from Bahia College. But after that, when my parents got to know that I'm not going to hide my gender and I will come in front and I will tell the world and I want to do social work and all, they actually disowned me. I was left on the road in the midnight with almost no money in the pocket. And after that, my studies and my everything I did by myself. I did dance function. I did a lot of stuff to get this degree. It was not that much easy. Now it seems easy, but I know how I got this thing.
Right, Sara, your point is noted. Jannat, would you want to add something to that? Because, like she pointed out that her family was supportive, but to a limited extent, after which she had to, of course, make her mark herself. So how do you see this whole system? How do you see our society evolving? Because at least I, as a bystander, would see it in the way that, we see so many young, transgenders emerging, making their marks, be it, Nisha Rao, be it Kami Sid, be it you, be it Dr. Sara for that matter. Somewhere or the other, you do, of course, have your family family support, and if not family support, then your own guru's support?
Yeah, but I think it's very challenging question, and still I think I also live with my family right now, but I think there is a tolerance, there is not acceptance yet.
Okay.
We have done a lot of great things, we have made history in the form of legislation, and Sara has also break the
Of course.
stereotypes and coming out as a role model, but still I think it takes a lot of time and courage and efforts to sensitize our families. And the families, why they react in a negative way, the society brain feeding in their minds, and the negative impact, they keep the talents on the backside, but they keep the gender in front, and they stigmatize and discriminate on the basis of gender as compared to our other siblings.
Right.
That's really painful.
And which is also one of the reasons why I was reading that a lot of transgenders, they prefer living with the gurus as opposed to their own biological parents.
But again, the gurus, if you go back and talk about the history, the gurus were also left out, from their families. They were thrown out by their families, and they were not educated. So if they are not educated, they were trying to sensitize their students, their chelas in their own way,
Right.
because they were not educating. And people here, they complain, oh, trans people are not educated. But do you know how and why? Because their parents are the first institution. If
Right.
they are not educating them, if the education system is not available for them, then how do you expect them?
Of
I'm
course.
also MBA gold medalist, but when after completing my MBA, I came into market to apply for the job, nobody were offering me a respectable job.
But having said that, you have made your mark in not only one, in fact, several fields, be it, activism per se, be it for that matter, dancing, being a lecturer, so many other things. So the credit does go to you. But coming to you, madam, we see, young, female, so many other, transgenders making the mark at this point in time in Pakistan, something which I earlier mentioned as well, and we do see this positive trend happening. Do you feel that we as a society accept, transgenders more now to what it was maybe 10 years ago? And if so, what are the reasons which are responsible for that?
Fatma, it's always a pleasure to be on your show.
Thank you,
and
madam.
first of all, I would like to congratulate you because you've touched upon a very, very important issue.
Thank you.
I think as a society, we have really wronged the transgender community, and we are all guilty because we are known by the kind of mindset that is prevalent in our society, and that, like Jannat just mentioned, borders on pure stigmatization of transgenders. We have never accepted them as part of normal society. The worst part is that Pakistan's constitution places all, Pakistanis as being equal,
Right.
and they have the right to their fundamental, rights
like
like
the same
education,
as that of any other person.
health, everything. So we cannot discriminate,
course.
but we have done so as a society. And for that matter, these people, I think, like Jannat just mentioned, their gurus, the ones who embraced them when they were abandoned by their own families, and then the gurus also went through this
Whole
period
thing.
of isolation when they were helter-skelter. There was no place for them
Right.
to go to. First of all, it is their survival. They have survived. But now I think we, being chair gender mainstreaming, we have come to the realization that we have to move towards inclusivity.
Of course, madam.
And inclusivity means that all the vulnerable segments of our society, the marginalized segments of our society, in which we have our trans community, we have our people with disabilities, we have women, we have girls, and at times also we have boys.
Right.
All these, segments, they need to be uplifted. It is, I think, a very, very positive aspect and a great beginning that we have transgenders like Sara, we have Jannat.
And then Kami Sid as well, who has internationally represented us and of course gotten us a lot of fame
so
too.
this is doing wonders to change the mindset of the society. And believe me, it is not just the common man. Right from the top, from our very senior leadership right down to different segments, especially especially our law enforcing agencies, they all need to be sensitized.
They all need to be sensitized.
They
I'll
all
take
need
this
to be
from there, madam.
sensitized. But I
Exactly.
think we are really moving ahead now,
Right.
and times are changing because of these educated transgenders who are now doing excellent work for their communities. Because of them, we are drafting laws, and we are trying to bring them into the mainstream fold of society.
Exactly, madam. And I think in this, like you very rightly so mentioned, a lot of credit does go to transgenders like Jannat and of course Dr. Sara Gill, who despite so many structural barriers and so many other impediments that have come their way, they've made their way through. On which, Dr. Saab, I would like to come to you. I think we must also get, the medical narrative on this too. Of late, we have seen that, a lot of transgenders have been opting for cosmetic aesthetic treatments and even otherwise, different kinds of treatments. So tell us about the patients who do come to you. What are their reasons for seeking such treatments, and what are the most common treatments that you do perform on them?
Fatma, first of all, I would like to add to the previous comments that, it was talk of the past when there was discrimination and people were not aware of these stories, Now, if we think of and we consider the society, they are, of course, human beings. They are part of us. They are part of the normal society. And it's, of course, through different media, different fora, and I'm really thankful to you for arousing these issues into the society, that they should be dealt in like as normal human beings. I have been working for them for last many years, and not only taking care of, as you know, I'm a reconstructive and plastic surgeon, not only reconstructive issues, general health issues, I was taking care of them. And I know a couple of other friends as well who are taking care, and we are treating them normally as, of course, other human beings, right? So if we talk of they are well taken care of, and Sara she must be well appreciated that she has taken a lead into, and she has also played a role that she is equally beneficial for the society.
Right, sir. But sir, coming to your real life experiences, since we do have the benefit of having you here today on the panel, like what kind of patients come to you and what kind of surgeries are most common? Because I do understand the fact that a lot of transgenders also opt for facial surgeries too.
Actually, as far as a reconstructive surgeon, I'm concerned with these people. They come to me, the transgenders, they come to me with different issues. First of all, if they are brought and they are not abandoned from home in all cases. Many of the cases they are brought to me by the parents.
Right.
And they are brought at a very early age.
That's a very interesting narrative. I didn't know that before.
It is. I have many examples. I have many patients, they are in contact with me. They're coming for follow-ups. They are brought their parents, by their parents, right? If there is something wrong with the hormones, we need to accomplish these areas first, and we have to fulfill the hormones like testosterone, like estrogen levels in the female. So we have to accomplish on these lines first to determine. But they must be taken care of if the patient becomes very early. And if most of the issues we facing as a surgeon, as a reconstructive surgeon, when they come to me is they have all the body developed under the shadow of these hormones or with the genetic guidelines. Like on the face, if you think of, they mostly if the hormone surge is more on the testosterone level or the genetics is having some issue, the male pattern hormone, it shows a heavy face. With the big fat areas on the lower jawline. As compared to the female, we have a defined jawlines. Hair distribution is one of the many issues.
So basically these are the different kind of concerns that they have, which you accordingly address basically. So Dr. Sara, but coming to you, since you are also a doctor per se, then of course being a transgender doctor, how would you comment on this? Because a lot of times we see that transgenders also go for such treatments because they want to address their mental health concerns. So how would you draw that line between patients who are just seeking these treatments because they have mental health concerns as opposed to those who genuinely want such treatments?
I just want to comment that there are many children born. The doctor, there is also one more doctor here in the panel, so he would be knowing that too. There are many children who are born with the birth defects like cleft palate and foot talip, and we do surgeries so that they can have a better life. So transgenders undergo surgeries for a better life. It's not about they can't live without it or they have to do it.
And better life, of course, does correlate with one's mental health that way. It's all, interlinked. Having a good quality of life would, of course, also having a good sound mind.
And it's also about what a person need to see in him or herself, and that's his or her personal choice. And I think it's not wrong if he or she is not harming anyone. Mostly people go for surgeries not because they want to look good or something like that, because they want to be confident. And the way they want to see themselves in the mirror, it's not for anyone else. They undergo, because 90% of people who call themselves trans. So we have to understand that there's a difference between the disorder and dysphoria. Gender identity issue is a dysphoria, not a disorder. It's not a disease.
On which, Jannat, I would want to come to you. I think she's made some very valid points that we do need to have the distinction, very clear. One is a medical condition, and the other, of course, is that, perception that transgenders have about themselves. On which I'll come to the 2018 law, of which I understand you were a very important part. And we must tell the audience that, Pakistan has a very progressive piece of law this way, which actually, a lot of developed nations also don't have. It gives the transgender that right to actually, self-identify themselves to whatever identity they do choose to have. So tell us more about this law, because I know that you've been a very strong advocate of it, and you've also been working with many stakeholders to actually bring it about.
Yeah, I think the basic challenge was to have self-perceived gender identity. And what was happening before, the other people were there to decide our gender. So as Sarah said, everybody have their own choice. So sometimes it's not a choice, it's a matter of life, that how do we feel. There are few questions, and I want to request people, please go on internet and check what questions are transphobic. So if you start communicating with the trans, so you can have a better understanding. Coming back to Transgender Protection Right Act, we went to grassroots level community, and I would like to...
You were leading this whole movement, I remember.
Yeah, we were
about
the committee of like 4 to 5 trans...
And you gave some very important proposals too.
And we did a lot of research, believe you me, and we were traveling late night in the winter, and there was fog. Our parents were not ready to allow us to go, and we were and the roads were blocked, and we were
but still you were so adamant to get this law through. So tell us about the main provisions for everybody, you know, so they understand that why we call this a landmark piece of legislation.
First is the self-perceived gender identity. Like if you're a woman, it's your right to tell, okay, that you want to get your ID card of female gender, right? So likewise, if a trans person is going and saying that I feel like a trans person and I want this identity card, gender X on my NIC, so they should get that. And other is the discrimination. It prohibits all kind of discrimination in all institutions, whether it's education system, whether it's healthcare, and it
employment.
Employment. Even in the prison, there should be proper arrangement for the trans person. And
but right now, we also have separate wards for them. I think this is something that must go to the government's credit.
I know that the things
hospitals.
are, it's gradually happening. But if we say okay, the world has been very inclusive, that will be totally
No, I'm
wrong.
not getting there. I'm just talking about the law. We'll come to that bit as well.
But the actual thing is the implementation and the rule of business. I'm happy that things are happening, but the process is a bit slow.
Madam, coming to, I think your narrative on this is very important, because you have been very actively working on this issue too. We have laws passed, and we also have very landmark Supreme Court judgments on the same. I think 2009 was that one year where the third gender was officially recognized in Pakistan too. But practically, how enabling is our system when we talk about, actual practical effective implementation of transgender rights?
See, Fatma, the problem with us is we are an overly legislated country. Our problem begins when, the implementation mechanism does not match the legislation, and especially it is not implemented in letter and spirit. Rules are not made, rules of business, lie pending. In 2019, I also submitted my transgender rights bill as a private member. But then when I started lobbying, I knew what had happened at the national level. So we started lobbying, and we started interacting with all the stakeholders. And finally, I think it was a very wise decision that this bill has now gone to the HR ministry. It is actually a human rights issue.
Of course.
It is the rights of trans community as Pakistani citizens.
And of course, Madam, Pakistan has even ratified the CEDAW, under which it is under an obligation.
Pakistan is always the first one to sign international and become, ratify international
in
treaties.
In which we are obligated basically to
and
look
we are
gender identity
yes,
as a serious
absolutely.
issue.
We need to honor all those treaties that we sign.
But Madam, I think due credit must be given to the government as well. They have been very focused in bringing about the transgender public protection policy.
We are moving
and
ahead. We are moving ahead. You see, it's a very progressive law, and not many countries in the world can boast of it. It's a bill in which the first protection that comes is that parents will also be punishable by law if they abandon or disown their children.
And that was
this is a very, very great injustice.
Of course.
And this we have to put an end to it. And this is the only way they can be mainstreamed, because a child needs to be looked after. And if a child is abandoned, then you destroy their future.
And I think in this regard, Madam, it's also very pertinent to mention there is a responsibility on the government as well to actually make protection centers for them, which again is of course very good for them, because for those who are abandoned by the families, for those who can't get to their gurus, at least they have a place to go to at the end, so they are protected.
The idea is stigmatization. I went to Nepal once, and there we studied the transgenders and how they lived in the society. They are totally mainstreamed there. They don't have special schools for them. People accept them in normal schools. People accept them in normal hospitals. People accept them in normal transport. But here the problem is all in our minds.
Right, Madam, your point is noted. But Dr. Saab, coming to you, we must also talk about the challenges which doctors and frontline workers face when transgenders do come to them, in terms of their treatment. So what are the most pressing challenges which you as a doctor feel that, you come across when you treat transgenders?
Actually, in transgender, there are certain incompletions, certain deficiencies in the body from head to toe. So we have to restore it. For restoration, it needs actually multiple surgeries, multiple challenges, different times we have to come across, and many a times, these surgeries, they become, they are not cost effective. So to be meeting them at the expense level and to conduct them in different scenarios, like, if I talk on average, maybe 4 or 5 surgeries a minimum, and maybe ranging up to 20 surgeries at different times.
A lot of times, transgenders also say that, getting these surgeries done, on going for such treatments, that in itself is also very expensive.
Very true.
So how do you counter that? Because, if you go by that, then their accessibility to the healthcare system, that gets, affected.
Very right. If I date back, actually, if we have given them and addressed the proper hormonal level at the very early age, then may have grown into the right stream. But actually, the problem is they are neglected at the very early age, when everything has grown in a different way. And most of them, they present at the time of like 18, 19 years of age. I have been doing it for the last 7, 8 years, and many a times just affording them from my own pocket, and just taking care of them in my own personal way.
But not all doctors are doing that.
Of course, it's sometimes it's very difficult. And there are other resources as well. We can take, I'm taking help from different, people, different family members, and many a times I told that these guys, they are brought to me by their parents. And I'm surprised that we are talking of abandonment. They are many a time very, very supportive. Like even they do give bloods. And during surgeries, sometimes we need blood, and parents, they do give blood.
But I would want to think, I think Jannat, you can add to this, Madam, you too, that maybe this is a rare minority, because the most of the transgenders that which we come across at least are those who have been shunned, not only by their families, but by the society.
That may be right, but I will narrate what I do see.
Of course, yeah.
Because if
and that adds to our knowledge.
If I require some, some surgical equipment, some stitches, some medications, I do prescribe them, and they arrange it. And there are many NGOs in Pakistan, and the people, they are, they are very supportive. They are lucky enough to get support from them as well. So it's basically a multi-prong, right? From our personal resources, from the family members, from different walks of the society, from NGOs, ultimately we get it through.
Right. So, but you've also had the benefit of working in UK. So when you make a comparison between Pakistan and UK or any other Western jurisdiction for that matter, how do these challenges change, or do they remain the same at a basic level?
That is sometimes pinching, There is a lot of difference between the other countries, like I worked in Canada, USA, and sometimes Germany as well. They are treated as just as a normal stream is. There is hardly any demarcation.
Right.
They're taken care as ordinary family member is, or ordinary society member is.
Right.
So they are taken care of as we are taking care of all the people around. But here there is some sort of issues with the acceptance, and this acceptance is sometimes causing problems.
Right, sir, your point is noted. But Dr. Sara, coming towards you, I think a very relevant and imminent question which arises in this regard is the fact that, when we do talk about the lack of acceptability, when we do talk about discrimination, we must also talk about the divisiveness as it does exist within the trans community itself, because we have seen not one, in fact, various incidents where transgenders, have been very divided. So what are your views on this issue? How can this be, taken care of? Why is it so important that transgenders as a community, they all stand united?
Well, I just want to comment on this. I agree that the conflicts, inter-community conflicts do exist, but we have to understand the dynamics of it. The thing is that there is a huge generation gap, and there's a difference between the ways of earning of the previous generation or the generation which are elder than us, and there is a difference between the way we are living. So the problem is the generation shift, and it's common in every gender. So transgender community also faces generation shifting. Second thing I want to say is actually most of the trans, including me, like in my initial days, it was very difficult for me to even accept myself as a trans because I was not ready for it. Because of the stereotypes of the society or because of the discrimination which I have to go through if I declare that I'm a trans woman. And yes, there are few incidents happen in which there was inter-community conflict and discrimination happened within the community. But it's like every other community. Like even in women, many women organizations, women do pull each other legs, men do the same is with us because we are human. I think it's a human nature, and I think it's kind of a common thing, not a big issue, but yes, it do exist.
I would want you to also comment on this law, because we all understand this law has been a very progressive, rather inclusive piece of legislation. So as a transgender, what is that one provision which you find most progressive about it?
The thing is that when you talk about the Trans Protection Law 2018, it was passed in the federal judiciary system and all that. So after 18 amendment, that law have a very limited application when we consider on the provincial level. And I think one important thing which I want to highlight in this bill is that identification thing, which is very good. If the person is saying that he or she is a trans and the law gives him or she the right to declare as a trans, and I think that's the most positive thing of the law. So I just hope that people actually support us and talk about the relevant topic instead of talking about us and gaining unnecessary attention.
Sara, coming towards you and coming towards the conclusion of the show, I was reading this Transgenders interview in which she very categorically stated that, films and dramas, they are a very important medium when we talk about, empowering transgender, and media that way has a lot of power. So what are your views on that? Do you feel that, casting more transgenders in dramas, casting more transgenders in films would actually practically help in uplifting them too?
Well, on certain points or up to certain limits, I do agree that it should be, because if there is a role of a trans, then a trans should perform it. But I also want to tell everyone that please break the stereotype that trans look like this or trans look like this. Trans can look like anything, like male can look like any person. They're different. Women come in different form and shapes. Male comes in different forms and shapes, and so do trans. So don't picture us with a stereotype image, so that trans can be of any shape and can look like anything. She can look more girly, she can look more boyish. it doesn't affect his or her gender. And I just want to tell people of Pakistan and the nation and everybody who is listening that I might be the first transgender doctor of Pakistan, but I promise you that I won't be the last. And my community will rise, and now we're not going to stop, because we waited a long time after the subcontinent got broken by the colonial law. We are still facing that thing, but now we are rising and we will make our country more proud.
Inshallah. As they say, rise above or fall below. Jannat, coming towards you and coming towards the conclusion of the show, I do understand the fact that you have been, very diligently conducting all these workshops in Denmark with the aim of basically empowering young people there and sensitizing them as regards, transgender rights. So how can we do the same in Pakistan?
I think we should endorse inclusion and diversity in every institute, and we need to sensitize the whole chain, whether it's education, whether it's healthcare, from the guard to the doctor and to the surgeons, because each and every step matters.
Right.
So I think that we parents needs to understand and give them enabling and safe environment for the coming and the youth trans persons, so that they can have a equal contribution as a respectable and dignified citizen. When I was a kid, nobody was there to listen. How do I feel? Our parents were trying to mold and fold me according to preconceived notion of the society. So at that time I chose art to be my friend, and I used to share my energy through my performing arts, and later on it became my profession. And now I do activism, I do activism through performing arts.
And I think that's something so different, because either people are into activism per se or they are into art. So we wish you all the best. And coming to you, madam, the PTI government has formulated the transgender protection policy, and then we also know that, the Sehat Insaf card that also, has been launched for the transgenders. But what more can we expect from the government in this regard, especially when it comes to empowerment of the trans community?
In the history of Punjab, that we have started allocating development plan for exclusively transgenders. 20 million we did the first year, and every year we are increasing the allocation. Secondly, in the social welfare department, in the next 2 years, there's a project in the pipeline where we are going to build a huge complex. It's going to be a multi-dimensional complex in which their education, their skills development, how to induct them in mainstream, everything will be done under one roof. So I think that's a great initiative, and the funds have already been allocated for that. And I think we are going to set up special desks where trans can go, and they can, because they'll feel more comfortable with their own community. If they have any issue, they'll be able to discuss, and especially also in our police stations. Then another thing which I want to point out is that in the Rozgar program in Ehsaas, now we have a definite allocation for trans community also, where they will get small loans for setting up businesses, SMEs, that will be really helpful.
Which is of course very encouraging for them. And then also, to your credit goes to the fact that, Rimal Ali, who was previously a transgender activist,